All right, you guys, so today I'm going to talk to you about the rules for exponential functions. We went over this in one of the other videos, but I wanted to give you a few more examples to help you guys understand it a little better and just to give you a few more problems to look at if you get stuck. So with exponential functions, we have three rules that a function has to follow for it to be considered exponential. So rule number one, the variable has to be in the exponent. So wherever you have an x in your function, it has to be a part of the power. Rule number two, the base has to be greater than 0. So the base is the number that has the exponent attached to it. So that number for the base has to be positive, greater than 0. And then rule number three, the base cannot equal 1. So the base can be any number that's greater than 0, but rule number three, it cannot be the number 1. So then to practice this, we've got four functions, and we want to determine if the functions below are exponential or not. If not, we need to use the three rules above to explain why. So we're going to start with the function f of x equals x squared. So we're going to go through our three rules one at a time and figure out if this function matches those rules. So rule one, the variable has to be in the exponent. So coming down here, we look at our exponent, which is this 2, and in that exponent, it's just a 2. There's no variable in that power. So since our exponent doesn't have a variable, we don't meet rule number 1. So this would be not exponential because there is no variable in the exponent. All right, and so that's all we have to do for that one. Once we know it's not exponential, we don't need to check the other rules. So we'll move on to the second function. Here on the right, we have f of x equals negative 2 to the power of x. And going through our three rules to check if it's exponential, rule 1 is the variable in the exponent. So coming down here, we have negative 2 to the power of x. So that means x is the power right here. So we're good on rule number 1. Rule number 2 is the base greater than 0. So we're looking for the number that has an exponent attached to it so we can figure out the base. So negative 2 is the number that has the exponent on it. So negative 2 is the base. And negative 2 is not greater than 0. Negative 2 would be less than 0. So since it doesn't meet rule number 2, this is not exponential. And the reason would be that negative 2 is less than 0. All right, then we come down here to f of x equals 1 to the power of x. And again, we're going to check our three rules. So rule 1, the variable has to be in the exponent. So in our function 1 to the x is the exponent here, so we're good on rule 1. Rule 2 is the base greater than 0. So in this function, our base is a 1. And 1 is a positive number, so 1 is greater than 0. So we're good for rule 2. And then rule 3 says the base does not equal 0. Well, here we're going to run into a problem. Our base does not equal 1. Because we're going to run into a problem down here because our base here is 1. So because our base equals 1, we don't follow rule number 3. So this is not going to be exponential. And the reason is because the base equals 1. And the base is not allowed to equal 1 in an exponential function. All right, and then we come over here to our very last function. We have f of x equals 1/3 to the negative 2x plus 4 power. So we're going to go through and check each of these rules. So rule 1, the variable is in the exponent. So in this function, our exponent or our power is negative 2x plus 4. And somewhere in this power, we have an x right here. So the variable is in this exponent. So we're good for rule number 1. Even though there's other things happening in the exponent, the only rule about the exponent is that it has to have the variable. So as long as that's true, we're good. Rule number 2, the base is greater than 0. So coming down here, our base is 1/3, and 1/3 is a positive number. It's greater than 0. So we're good on rule number 2. And then rule number 3, the base does not equal 1. Well, coming and looking at our base of 1/3, 1/3 does not equal 1, so we're good for rule number 3. So this function, as complicated as it might look with everything going on, it follows all three of our rules. So since it follows all three of our rules, this last function is exponential. and is the only one of all four of these functions that would be considered exponential. All right, so I hope this gave you guys a little bit more practice, maybe a bit of a better understanding of how to determine if something is exponential or not. So look over this, figure out if you're still confused about anything. Let me know if you have any questions, and then make it a great day or not. The choice is yours.